Hi, I am Cardinal Dr. Elizabeth Samantha Rothschild Judge, and today I am exploring my MOG. It's where I keep short ideas and business notes and other things, especially when I'm considering something from the Word of God and I don't want to forget. So I was just looking to see, it started with the trying to calculate my realty acquisition rates, meaning if I conducted an acquisition for another party, what rates would I assess for that business procedure? And went on through my brokerage tally. And before I knew it, I had bought a property and opened an acquisition on another one for myself and my own business. Okay, on here, relationship building, notes on that. Also, larceny, grand larceny, fraud, notes on that, types of property. So I'm back on property. Well, that was in with the larceny. Okay, then about fasting, be a little less. Something I needed to work on. Transitional housing program. So I was asked about starting a federal housing program for the offices of Congress for use during mandatory legislative sessions and office meetings. There's time where the congressmen, the senators have to be here. They have to be in Washington, D.C., and they are represented by delegation from their home state. And being away from home, there's nowhere for them to stay here without having to pay for a hotel or maybe be housed with someone, stay with someone they know, or something like that. And so I had been asked to consider that. So I said, well, maybe it would be like the subsidized housing. So, say for instance, if you have a senator from, let me think of somewhere close by, like New Jersey. New Jersey is just a few hours away from Washington, D.C., maybe 2 hours to Newark, something like that. And so a senator coming from New Jersey would feel double taxed if they had to get a place to stay in Washington, D.C., yet they need a place to stay during mandatory times because there are times that the senators have to be present for particular meetings, particular legislative sessions. And so if my company could look into this as a federal agency to provide, well, let's say I wouldn't really call it transitional housing. I said transitional housing. I need to put a little note here to say we don't want to say transitional housing because it's not like they need help. The senators of the United States of America are paid very good salaries to afford their cost of living. And so it's not like they need help getting housing. So let's take out the house. Um, let's call it, I mean, take out the transition. Let's call it the Congressional Housing Program. This is in development here. So federal, it would be federal housing by assignment to office of Congress. So just as the senators are assigned to their particular office space, we could develop congressional housing where they would be assigned to a place to stay during those sessions. Would have to sign in and out. Of course, there would be concierge there. Because I remember there was a senator from, oh my goodness, I can't remember where she's from. I'll have to look it up. But she was saying, I saw on a news report a few years ago, that when she comes to Washington, she has nowhere to stay. And ultimately, she slept in her car, but she had to be. So I was thinking, wow, that's something that we really didn't consider. Being from Texas, the lieutenant governor had an apartment at the Texas State Capitol. And so here in the White House is the assignment for the president. And I'm not sure what the vice presidential assignment is for living arrangements, but the senators do need a place where they can be because they are required to be here at some times. And it may not be convenient for the budget, depending on how they have their budgets allocated and appropriated. And especially when they've gone down to the detail and done everything specifically, that can weigh in on even the healthiest budget. So I'm thinking just during mandatory legislative sessions and office meetings to make some housing available where they could check in like it was hotel suites or apartment type setting. And they would also have a place to retreat to work when they're here and they need to get out of the office, but they still need to do some work. So that's something that I'm considering. That's in my MOG. Let's see what else is in the MOG. Leyendo de la Epistola de Pablo a los Romanos, capítulo 1, versículos 18 a 23. Okay, so that was a reading. What else? Someone from that lives over or staying over at the shelter where I'm staying, the homeless shelter, got their contact information, email, and then I went into working from the book of Judith, from the Deuterocanonical version, about fasting and consecration and holy garment. And this was, let's see what else I have here. Rape causes social imbalance. Everyone is born with inalienable rights. Inalienable rights are protected by the Constitution of the United States. Okay, so I've already done that. Okay, now an email for someone who wanted me to do something for them, and I've already completed that task for them and given it to them, those things that they needed done. Okay. Have me two notes here, Archdiocese Catholic and Apostolic, and Annunciation Holy Catholic and Apostolic Church, both of which I am the founder. I am the overseer of the Archdiocese, pastor of my church. Short topics: primal fear, carnal fear. So primal is a natural instinct, and carnal is adaptive cognition. Primal fear being those things that any human should be afraid of, like being in water that you definitely can't drink out of the water and you can't swim out of, or standing in the midst of a fire, things that would kill the body just because we can't withstand it in our humanity. For it's like the rules of survival. The rules of survival were based on primal instinct. The carnal instinct, adaptive cognition. That would be you see trouble or far away to go the other direction. That's you're cognizant. You see that there's a problem. You see that there's issues, so you're trying to get out of the way. The adaptive cognition that helps us to know how to comply and when to comply with whatever rules and policies that are. Now, the effects of drugs cause disillusionment, and the effects of a fornicating lifestyle cause misguidance. So the combination of both produces fear and a heightened sense of primal fear and a misperception of carnal fear. So you have to be in the right state of mind to understand what you are basically as a human to know how to survive and to know how to keep alive. So a primal fear, the things that would pose danger or cause death, it's heightened. And that's why sometimes people say that others are, what do you call it? Paranoid or paranoid when they're intoxicated with their drug. And the misperception of the carnal fears, that what you think is not going to hurt you likely could, because you have the wrong perception of what's going on due to being misguided. Okay, the imbalance of social activity during a time of drug use and fornication combined causes the carnal perspective of fear. A need. It causes a need to overcome carnal perspective of fear. So the carnal perspective, where we have sense enough to know not to go and get ourselves in danger, that disillusionment can cause one to have a need to prove themselves through a danger. And the need to adjust relies on natural instinct rather than adaptive cognition due to perspective. So, with the wrong perspective, they're relying on primal instinct or natural instinct to overcome a carnal fear, which requires adaptive cognition. It's about what you know about getting away from nature at that time. Okay, the improper perspective causes delusion of actual survival skills. When people think that they are almighty and invincible, they can say or do anything, they can defeat the worst enemy, they become delusional, because when you have those things combined, you're weakened by sex and you're weakened by the drug. Okay, what else do I have? A great fear of man or woman, is rape. That's a great fear. For a man tries to avoid being ejaculated, especially against his will, by any woman older than he is, while a woman tries to avoid physical violence. Men do not greatly fear physical violence when it comes down to sex. They have the testosterone to fight. And women do not greatly fear unempathetic sex. The inhibition only exists until the body gives. So there's not a big deal when one is not emotionally involved or does not care or is unempathetic when it comes to the basic instincts of a woman concerning sex and being safe from rape. And with a man, uh, it's more uh, being deceived into being empathetic. All right, let's see what else I have here. The parable of the talents, IRS distribution accordance. Something I'll have to get to later. Right, that explains where I'm up to in my MOG. And not much other is going on. Well, I have a couple other things in here, so I'm going to get those completed. That's the MOG, and it's a good place to put notes, keep a little notebook with you, especially those of you who are employed in busy offices full time. Write it down. If you can't write it down, it probably shouldn't be. Okay. Well, you all have a great day. Thank you for joining.